Welcome to Season 3 of Broom Closet Recordings, imagining, creating, and fostering the remembering of power within and the cultivation of power with. A space for those seeing, sensing, and shifting perceptions beyond the illusions, past the spells cast on our truest selves. All that is needed is within us. As we remember the divine spark within, smothered into embers for generations, it is now becoming a roaring fire, balanced by the water, air, earth, and spirit knowledge also brewing from within. The witch in you is not wicked. The witch in you is awakening. Reintegrating sacred surrender and the divine erotic. This is a continuation Broom Closet recording from previous Broom Closet about surrender and the erotic, as well as an oracle reading that I did over on my Transmuting the I channel. I've been continuing to sit with, contemplate, explore, channel this idea of surrender. And the next stage of my own personal growth and understanding and my offering here is moving us into sacred surrender from the idea of just understanding the concept of surrender and into the divine erotic from just the concept of the erotic. So therefore, the title for this, Reintegrating Sacred Surrender and the Divine Erotic. Both surrender and erotic are words. Words are spells. It is why we spell our words when communicating them, whether in the material world of pen and paper or fingers and keyboard, or in the ethers through thoughts and mind. Even without letters, the mind spells words and expresses them through multiple chakras, but pointedly and poignantly, it is the use of our throat chakra that we share, give words with into the world. Our brains spell our desires in order for our lips to speak them. Words are energy, and so we must remember that with words, we must also be aware of the connection words imply, whether that is to the self, others, earth, cosmos. Our words and use of them imply definitions and beliefs, and then these form our behaviors. The taking back of the doing of surrender and the being of erotic to exercise word spells in the material and ether is to take back the connection both words imply. For empaths, healing healers, channelers, priestesses, alchemists, tricksters, transmuters, and of course the remembering witches, the respelling witches, the returning witches, those here to hold the light and shadow in balance and reverence. There is an abundance of power within, for we are souls who came here to remember and to activate. Mechanisms of control use words to confuse and confound, such as I shared in the previous Broom Closet when I explored the words surrender versus submission. The same goes for the erotic and the pornographic. Control seeks to steal and misname the being of erotic because with that energy there is a deep, unending well of power in the form of divine love, soul choice, free will, and remembering. Control seeks to steal and misname the doing of surrender because sacred surrender creates a powerful release and conversion energy in the form of trust and manifestation. Once we know, and then be and do this knowing, because remember, there is a difference between knowing the path and being the path. Once we know and commit to the knowing, an inner, often dormant power is actualized. This knowing that allows us to be and do in balanced energy is what allows us to surrender to earth and to each other, and erotically so. Meaning we, without a shadow of a doubt, understand and know and be, and we define, believe, and do a bridging of material, social, cultural, political self, and our spiritual, energetic, soul, cosmic selves. Those of us on an intentional healing journey, grounded in the spiritual aspects of this material embodiment, likely spend time in the spiral of life processing the doing and the being of this human experience. The yin, sacred feminine being, and the yang, sacred masculine doing of our energy source are deep well springs, cauldrons, wombs of creation and action. There is a wisdom of knowing to be found when one slows down enough to observe that the current mechanisms of control creating our extremely externally focused perception of reality can only replicate its perception of our doing. This is due to the prioritization this construct gives to that which is externally seen by human physical eyes. And so we, by conditioning, turn our focus primarily, if not solely, on the material outcomes of our doing. Very little energy and fostering is offered in the mainstream for understanding and cultivating from within, and the working with the unseen, that which is sensed not in the material world, but in the omnipresent actual reality of the world beyond and beneath construct making. The mainstream of Western reality, where the power of the mechanisms of control dwell, is what we word spell as the patriarchy, white supremacy, and capitalism. These mechanisms make their predominant home in the material. Power over is rooted in powering over the external experience of our bodies through patriarchy, the identities, grounded in white supremacy, we take on to move in our bodies, and the thoughts controlling desire, shifting it to material fulfillment, capitalism. By twisting our species' relationship away from a real Mother Earth that is of and part of ourselves, and instead toward a make-believe Father God not connected to ourselves at all, these mechanisms have us believing power is external. This belief, this lie, fosters the continuation of the current crumbling global social, political, and cultural status quo. As Audre Lorde offered us, the dichotomy between the spiritual and the political is also false, resulting from an incomplete attention to our erotic knowledge. For the bridge which connects them is formed by the unseen, the sensual, those physical, emotional, and psychic expressions of what is deepest and strongest and richest within each of us, being shared, the passions of love in the deepest meanings. By rewriting, respelling, rewiring, remembering our origin stories and definitions beyond the construct, we can begin to create the timeline desired by those of us who ground in the knowing a balancing and balanced human can exist and function here with Earth in divine reciprocity, righteous amends, and in sacred relationship with the Earth and therefore ourselves and all beings. To rewrite, respell, rewire, remember, we must choose to take an intentional healing journey. And so many of us have. We may not have started out knowing it was of a spiritual nature, but as more parts healed, more parts remembered. We are whole, just temporarily parted by the construct. The process of a transmuting healing journey supports the return, the remembering the whole of who our species truly is. To transmute, we must first unlearn and rewire the definitions, beliefs, and behaviors we are conditioned to do in this constructed and controlled reality. Once we can see and name the conditioning within our individual I, see and name patriarchy, white supremacy, and capitalism embedded in the projection of self, we can then also remember the sacred within, specifically the sacred feminine leading the sacred masculine, and in remembering, respelling the definitions, beliefs, and behaviors within our beings. When we can comprehend our spiritual selves having a material experience in a balanced way, from the human experience of both the emotional and rational, thoughts and feelings, linear and spiral, action and stillness, We can begin to remember, respell, and re-witch our realities, uprooting deeply embedded false definitions, beliefs, and behaviors. Why does the construct, through religion and science, denigrate and try to make forgotten the true being and doing of our human selves? It is these internal innate forces, the true yin, being, and yang, doing, aspects, and our managing and engaging of them outside of construct control that is feared. This is because the construct cannot replicate our inner worlds, which holds the mass amount of our immanent power. The mechanisms of control that we call the patriarchy, white supremacy, and capitalism can only replicate our outer worlds. And so it leans into and generates an out of balance state of external energy, creating the toxic masculine dominated construct we are experiencing now. It is important to explore this idea for yourself. What the constructs of patriarchy, white supremacy, and capitalism fear most is our remembering, recognizing, and being the yin of us, because this, it cannot replicate. And if it cannot replicate it, it cannot control us. The taking back of doing surrender is about remembering, respelling, and rewitching. It is an act that at its central spiral point is about choice, trust, and belief. And when these three are from the sacred within and not the imbalance of without, the human being is unstoppable in its human doing. The taking back of being erotic is about remembering, respelling, and rewitching. It is an energy that is at its center spiral point about senses, autonomy, and connection. The coming together, the wholeness of I plus we, and the ability to feel this simultaneous state of autonomy and community in its fullness. I am whole and we are one. The place where our individual divine sparks ignite together. This power within the I, offering true fodder for the power with the we, is power over's deepest fear. Our journeys include remembering the power within to surrender to the erotic within is not the same as the power over of submission to mechanisms of control. When we begin to remember, it can't exist. When we truly remember the whole of who we are, truly remember the strength in connecting deeply our passions with each other, truly remember the creative well that holds our creative power to imagine, create, foster, we can create an intuitive, unstoppable connecting force and wave for shifting this timeline. May those of us who desire so surrender to the remembering journey, and in so doing, erotically empowering our forgotten shadows to heal and our authentic divine sparks to rise. Remembering is the path on the journey of returning to the true self. You are not too much or too little. You are an illusion breaker, a space holder for power with, not power over, a light holder with acknowledged shadow elements embodying power within, unapologetically being your magic and your knowings. Return again when you feel the call. I'll be here, remembering, holding space. Same Bruja time, same Bruja channel.